Another thing I thought of, and I tossed it in our little chat here with our notes at the bottom, is something I thought about um, during the trailers for Top Gun. And when I brought up Taika Waititi, I think this is a really interesting conversation. So I'm skipping the other ones and we're moving those topics to another podcast day because the topics you come up with, Kyle, are ridiculously bad. No, I'm just kidding. I just, I want to,
Is cheese an instrument? Kyle, that's not what we're going to talk about.
I think this is interesting. So I just saw Top Gun Maverick, and there was a lot of older people in the crowd who were in their 30s, and were a lot younger when the first Top Gun came out, and they wanted to go see it and whatnot. And then the trailer for Nope came on, and I could feel that there was some tension in the room, even with this older crowd. And when it ended, it didn't feel like, ugh. It felt like, okay, like people were interested from a much older crowd. And I thought that was interesting. And then I started to think to myself, who really are the directors alive right now, young ones, newer directors who are the actual stars of their movies still? Because back in the day, when Spielberg put out a movie and his name came on it, you went and saw the new Spielberg movie. There's a reason he's the GOAT. I think Tarantino has reached that. I think he has reached it more so in the mid 2000s through now, up through the Hollywood movie. Oh, I can't think
Once
of the
Upon a
title.
Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I do think because he makes so few movies that helps with the magic of him, even if people don't love it. So
Sure.
I don't think he counts. I think he's been around and he is one of those stars. I don't think he counts today, right now, in what I'm about to propose here. But who are those directors that you think truly can sell the movie on their own? That when it says directed by whoever, do people go, and I you can't count Nolan either. I think you take Nolan out because I think Nolan's been doing it for 10 plus years and we know he sells a movie. That's why I'm asking you now, because that's the easy answer. I thought about that in the theater. I said, who's the Spielberg? And the first two names that came to mind were Nolan and were Tarantino. And I went, that's the easy answer because they are stars who are just entering the prime of being able to do this. I don't want guys who are already balling out. I want guys you're like, ooh, I want the young guys. You know what I mean? Because we've talked about directors that are good and we think are going to be upcoming great ones, but do they sell the movie? Who do you think?
I got two that come to mind, and you mentioned one with
Jordan
Nope.
Peele.
Jordan
I
Peele.
think that's completely true. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, even though not as many people liked Us as Get Out, I still think Jordan Peele's name means something. And I think the other one that's going to be happening soon is Greta Gerwig. I think between Lady Bird and Little Women,
you
and
coming out here swinging. I love that.
I mean, I don't think many people are thinking about that name either, but I think it's gonna happen soon, especially if this Barbie movie actually works that she's making. Apparently, it's like God's gift to
She's
humanity.
doing the Margot movie, Barbie movie?
Yeah, she wrote it with her husband, Noah Baumbach. I think that's who it
But
was.
did she
She's
direct it?
directing it. Yeah, she's directing it
What?
now.
How did I
Yeah.
not know that? Well, now I get why it makes a little more sense because I kept seeing headlines and it was like the Barbie movie is being called the greatest thing to ever walk the planet. People are like, it's the next Citizen Kane.
Holy grail.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll believe it. But if that
Huh.
movie especially works, I think she could be in that category as well.
Wow,
But
I did know this.
it's such a bummer in this day and age that I can't name any more beyond that, because nowadays movies are so brand driven and not talent driven. And it's fine. Like, I don't necessarily need every movie to be
They are
talent
brand
driven,
driven.
but it's also annoying because it feels like, because of it being so brand driven, people aren't open to seeing a variety of movies anymore as compared to years ago when that wasn't the case. And I think
Yeah.
when it was more talent or director driven, it opened up to people seeing a variety of things, and that's why there's so many different types of movies that are now considered classics. But now because everything is brand recognized and people don't want to really be taking risks with what they're watching anymore, despite, being given not only theaters but
Mhm.
streaming, thousands of streaming
Yeah.
services. It just doesn't really happen anymore to where there's really those directors that get their chance to shine and then they can become those household names. So thanks, Alex. Now I'm
I got
mad.
I got 2
thinking
things for
about
you. Do
this.
you think Taika's there? Do you
Oh
think
crap!
after
Yeah,
the what was the movie he just did before Thor, with about
Jojo
Hitler?
Rabbit,
Jojo Rabbit, I couldn't think of the name. I think that
fantastic
is
movie.
when we go, Taika's one of them. I think
You're right. You're
when
right.
he
I should
does
have
the
thought of that.
Nolan move, he did the Nolan move, you know what I mean? Like, he made the big budget movie, and then he said, "All right, now you gotta fund my other movie, or I'm gonna go make my other movie with this other company and take a break, and then I'll be back." I think
Sure.
he can sell a brand. I'd love to see what he will do not in a big thing again. I'd love to see another one of those, but he was underground for a while making those awesome independent movies.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's another thing I hate when people say that they don't like when people become mainstream. I'm so sorry that your art that nobody sees in the coffee house hanging up, that you don't want to get paid for it. But these people do. Taika is enjoying being with Disney because they're paying him, and that has been his dream. Because that's what the dream is to make it, and that's what it means to make it is to be able to have lots of options. And that's what Taika
Sure.
has gotten. I think that's what Jordan Peele has gotten, and he worked very hard to get it.
Mhm.
Um, I think Olivia Wilde might have a shot if this Don't Worry Me Darling movie is very good, and then whatever comes next. Because
Mm.
Booksmart, I think, was just underground and good enough for people to go, okay, Olivia Wilde, and they already know who she is as an actress. So I think she has some potential. I think John
Okay.
Krasinski had some of that potential, but it depends on what he's going to direct next. I think Ben
John
Affleck.
Krasinski. John Krasinski. Sorry to cut you off, but that
No, you're
one
good.
is an interesting one
Hmm.
because I think he directed like one thing before the Quiet Place movies, and I'm really wondering if he does anything else, if his name will sell, or if he'll be so tied to a Quiet Place that the brand is what's going to drive people to see his stuff. I'm very curious about how that's going to play out if he
Well, what
continues
do you
working as
mean? Do
a
you think
director.
if let's say he makes a gangster movie, and let's just assume it's awesome and it
Hmm.
has nothing to do with a Quiet Place. You think if it flashes from John Krasinski, director of A Quiet Place 1 and 2, that's what sells as they go, "Oh, it's Quiet Place 1 and 2. It's not that it's John Krasinski. We don't, Do you know what I'm trying to ask here?"
Yeah, and I think I actually worded that wrong, but based on how you're asking it. So I just mean that if he did anything else outside of A Quiet Place at this point, will his name sell? Will it get people to go see it? Like if it's just some gangster movie, not brand driven, not related to A Quiet Place, are people going to go out to it? Or
Sure.
are they going
Okay.
to be waiting for him to direct A Quiet Place 3 for
And just skip
whatever?
that.
Yeah.
Unlike a Jojo Rabbit where it made a lot of money and people liked it and it was really loved and whatnot. I do
Mhm.
think Ben Affleck had a shot because he was writing. I just rewatched
Yeah.
Argo a little bit ago. I think he had a shot, but what helped him is not only was he directing those movies, but he was starring in them. And then I think he was
Mm.
kind of hitting it from two sides where he was starting to be a star that was selling the movie. Um, I think um because I think the only two honest stars who can get people to a movie by just their movie are the only ones left are really Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise, and maybe I know I just saw Top Gun, but because I don't think it's just Top Gun Mission Impossible. I think if it says Tom Cruise is the lead, I think people are very interested. I think The Rock gets that, and I weirdly think and it's died down a little bit since, but Kevin Hart had that ability for a while where everybody was seeing anything he was in. He made two awful ride along movies and they made a bunch of money. Like that happened for a while, but in terms of directors, there's not a lot of pickings left anymore. I mean obviously like Spielberg sells a movie. He's been doing it forever. Tarantino sells a movie, Nolan sells a movie. Alfonso Cuarón, I think by his name can sell a movie.
But not to
Um,
the mainstream. Even though he did like Harry Potter
Not
3.
lately. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
Gravity I think was largely because of his name. But
Yeah,
lately he hasn't done a
maybe.
lot.
Mhm.
He took some time. I mean, obviously a Scorsese sells a movie. But who are the new guys?
Mm.
I don't know if I can think of anyone else. I think Ryan Coogler was starting to get there. If he takes a break from Black Panther and does some other projects, he's got a real shot because I've pumped him up. Oh, I got one for you. Denis Villeneuve can sell a
I was
movie.
wondering when you were gonna say his name because
Do
I
you think he's past
questioned that one.
where I'm at? Why? Why do you question things? Do I
Don't
got
get
to
me
pull up
wrong.
Box Office Mojo
He's
right now?
don't get me wrong. He's a great director. I love him. He's one of my favorites currently working right now. But after Dune, I don't hear people talking about the director. I hear people talking about some of the actors in the movie. I don't hear them talking about the director though. And as talented as this guy is, I don't know if it's his name that sells the movie. I know like he had like a good box office with Dune and also with Arrival, but I don't know. I think that was just a little bit of concept and a little bit of
Prisoners
brand.
made money.
Prisoners did, which was pretty impressive, but he's had movies like Blade Runner 2 that underperformed, which is unfortunate. That's a great movie, but
That's right.
um I just don't get the sense that his name is recognizable. It should be. It absolutely should be because the dude's fantastic, and Dune, I think, really helped him get a little bit more well known. But I'm just not quite seeing like a big rise in
Dude,
stardom for like general
Blade
people
Runner made a
yet.
little bit of money. Not a lot, but it made a little bit.
It did good, but they
Did
were
okay.
expecting more. They were
Bigger.
expecting more out
Yeah,
of that.
I actually think Denis might not be in the category I'm talking about because I think
Yeah.
Jordan Peele um I think Denis' name sells a movie. I think Dune made more money because Denis Villeneuve did it. And I think people knew him
Hmm.
from things. I think the sci-fi underground community knew him. Obviously the book sells. That book is going to put people in the seats cuz it's just a known book.
Sure.
Um, but I think Arrival was his big test of, yeah, I can sell a movie because I think people really did like Prisoners, even though it was very intense.
Mm,
But I think he's probably already past this entering prime conversation because I think these should be directors who are entering their prime, not who are in it. And I would say he's in it. So I think if he put out a random movie about Jawas pooping on a star destroyer, I think people might go see it with his
nice.
name attached. You know what I mean? Like I think if he puts out Broom Boy 2 Electric Boogaloo, I think people do know his name well enough. At least, and maybe there's tiers to this. Maybe it's not that they know Denis Villeneuve, but they go, "Hey, he made Arrival," and people go, "Oh, okay, I'm in." Like maybe he's at that level yet, or it's not.
Sure.
I know your name, but I know what you've done. Um, so he is an interesting. He's an interesting one.
I want him to
Uh,
be the household name, man. Like we've talked about it like on a lot of videos. Like that dude is just talented and whatever he's made
yeah.
has been fantastic. I just don't get the sense that he's necessarily that household name, but I think you kind of described it well to where if I name something of his, they might be like, "Oh, I've seen it or I've heard of it. I've heard that
Sure.
it's good." So,
Looking at
man,
another
he's so
sci-fi
close too.
guy,
He's just so close.
I look at like Alex Garland, having just seen Men. Alex Garland's made some really good, deep underground sci-fi movies, but he's not even close to a household name. I wouldn't even put him
No.
in the category of me being like, oh, he made Arrival, or oh, he made the
Ex
name was just
Machina.
in my head, Ex Machina, and people go, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Denis
Tell
is
them he made
past some,
Annihilation. People will be
and then
like,
they'll be like,
"What
huh?
did you just say?"
Remember it was Natalie Portman in a bubble, and they'll be like, what?
She was in a who? She's in Thor 4. I know she's in Thor 4.
Waititi's making four, and I love Taika
The
Waititi.
director.
But if he makes one more mainstream, here's final question as we end.
Oh
Does
boy.
Star
Okay.
Wars end up being the downfall of Taika? Do people hate Star Wars so much that they hate Taika because of it? Is that what happens? Taika makes an incredible Star Wars movie, but and I'm talking about the super strong, opinionated people who are just instantly will love his movie because they love him. Do you think? Do you think maybe the hatred for Star Wars is bigger than the love for Taika?
Yes.
I kind of agree. I
Yes.
could totally see people. I could see Taika making just the coolest, funniest, just action packed, heartfelt Star Wars movie, and people going, "No, I hate Star Wars and Disney." Blah, blah, blah. You know what I
I
mean?
hope people who are listening to this don't feel like
No one
we're
listens.
attacking fandoms or like
No, we
we're
are a
like
little bit. It's gotten
yucking on their
bad.
yum or anything, but we're just stating the obvious. Like some of it has just gotten bad, has gotten toxic, and it does
Mhm.
put a damper on things that we're supposed to like when, like you can disagree, you can not like things, but like don't be annoying about it.
No, I
Just
agree. I
tone
mean,
it down a
yeah,
little.
it's art. It's subjective. Everybody's
Yeah.
opinion does matter. It's when when they're changing. Fans have only gotten one thing to change in a big movie that has been positive, and that was changing how Sonic the Hedgehog looked.
I
Everything
was
else
hoping you would say that one.
Everything else has always resulted in a train wreck. Whenever you hear about producers getting too involved because
Excuse me.
because fans are complaining on
Mhm.
Reddit and on TikTok because they want to be right, that's when it turns into a problem. I love our friends. I love that everybody has their opinion. I love all that. That's awesome. It's great to have the conversation, and maybe that's where the frustration lies, Kyle. We've lost this. Have we lost white guys doing a podcast? No. They're a
No!
dime a dozen. But what we have
We're
lost,
still
I
kicking
think,
it.
is honest conversation where you can get a little heated, you can have a little fun, you can laugh, you can get a little upset. But at the end of the day, you go, but I still love you. You know what I mean? Like, I think we've lost that.